Man on Fire is one of the most underrated revenge movies ever made. And there's a crazy theory that John Creasy, the broken operative at the center of this story, never actually died. That he survived, changed his name, and became someone else entirely. Someone who showed up again 10 years later, still carrying a gun, still protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. And the little girl he gave everything for? She found him again too, nearly 20 years later. We'll get back to that soon. But first, let's talk about the guns. The movie opens in chaos and barely slows down, and the armorers match that energy. Early on, cartel operatives are carrying a Remington 870, the pump-action shotgun that has shown up in more movie armories than almost any other long gun in history. The 870 has been in production since 1950, and it went on to become the best-selling shotgun in American history. The 10 millionth unit came off the line in 2009. A big part of that success came down to a smart engineering call. Remington built the 870 to share parts with their rifle line, which kept costs down without cutting corners on quality. The U.S. Marine Corps picked it up in 1969, and the twin action bars that set it apart from cheaper shotguns stop it from twisting and jamming under pressure, which is exactly why it keeps turning up in movie armories more than 50 years after it was first made. From the best-selling shotgun in American history, the movie reaches into its armory for something with a far stranger story. A pistol that somehow ended up on both sides of the same war. The Browning High Power shows up in Man on Fire as a sidearm Creasy considers buying, and it makes complete sense. This gun served in the armies of over 50 countries for most of the 20th century. John Moses Browning started the design after the French military asked for a high-capacity service pistol, but he died in 1926 before he could finish it. Belgian designer Dieudonné Saïve completed the work, and the gun entered Belgian Army service in 1935. Then the Second World War happened, and things got complicated. When Germany occupied Belgium in 1940 and took over the FN factory, they immediately started making the high power for their own troops. At the same time, the original blueprints had already been sent to Britain, where a Canadian company started making the exact same gun for the Allied side. The same pistol rolling off production lines for both armies at the same time. After the war, the high power went on to be used by over 90 countries. FN stopped making the original in 2018 after 83 years. From a pistol that was there for almost the entire 20th century, the movie pulls out something that helped define what that century looked like on screen. The Thompson M1928A1, better known as the Tommy gun, turns up during the arms deal scene, sitting alongside hardware several decades newer. The Thompson was the first gun ever officially called a submachine gun. The name was invented by its designer, Brigadier General John T. Thompson, who wanted a word for a weapon one person could carry and fire on full auto. Its image as the go-to gun of Prohibition gangsters is mostly a myth built by newspapers and the movies. In the 1920s, a Thompson cost $200, which is the equivalent of around $2,800 today. Way out of reach for most criminals. A few high-profile cases gave it that reputation, and Hollywood did the rest. By the Korean War, the U.S. Army had replaced it with something cheaper, simpler, and uglier. And that replacement happens to be in the same bag. The M3A1 grease gun is sitting right there next to the Tommy gun. And the gap between those two weapons tells you everything about how American military thinking shifted during the war. The whole gun was stamped out of sheet steel and welded together in two halves. The U.S. government paid about $20 per unit, compared to $209 for a Thompson. The original M3 was even designed to be thrown away. Soldiers were expected to ditch a broken one rather than fix it, because spare parts weren't included. The M3 stayed in the US military all the way from World War II through Desert Storm in 1991, used mainly by tank crews who needed something compact inside the vehicle. After all that military hardware, Creasy goes in a different direction. And when the Zabala comes out, he uses it in a way that nobody is prepared for. The Zabala side-by-side shotgun is the weapon Creasy uses to take the hand off a cartel associate in one of the most memorable scenes in the movie. And the movie plays it not as an explosion of anger, but as something much colder than that. Deliberate, methodical. The Zabala is a double-barrel design rooted in the Spanish and Italian countryside, closely related to what the Sicilian mafia called the lupara, a name that comes from the Italian word for wolf. The double barrel has a kind of weight in crime movies that a pump action never quite gets. And the reason is simple. It only holds 2 rounds. You have to reload by hand, and it gives you no real advantage in a fight. Pulling one out isn't a tactical decision. It's a message. From that scene, the movie moves into territory that involves quite a bit more firepower, and no fewer than 3 different versions of the same classic pistol. 3 versions of the M1911 turn up in Man on Fire. A Colt Commander, a Colt Gold Cup National Match, and a nickel-plated Auto Ordnance M1911A, one with pearl grips. The Commander came out in 1950 as Colt's answer for officers who wanted the 1911 in a shorter, lighter package. The Gold Cup National Match was made for competition shooting and is the version Creasy carries during one of the movie's execution scenes. The 1911 itself was adopted by the US Army in 1911 and carried as the standard American military sidearm for 74 years, the longest run of any service pistol in American history. The Auto Ordnance variant was originally set up by John T. Thompson, the same man behind the Tommy gun earlier in this video. And now the gun that this movie is really built around, and the one that ties it to something that happened nearly 20 years later. John Creasy's main gun throughout Man on Fire is a Glock 34, the long slide competition version of the Glock platform. And the movie introduces it in the most unexpected way possible. Not in a gunfight, but pressed against Creasy's own head in the suicide scene, where it fails to go off on a round he has deliberately kept back for himself. The Glock 34 came out in 1998. Its barrel is 21 millimeters longer than a standard Glock 17, and the top of the slide is cut out to help with balance during fast shooting. Built for sport, but picked up by SWAT and Special Operations units who value the longer barrel for accurate shots at distance. Now, remember that theory from the intro? Creasy is declared dead at the end of this movie, in 2003. In The Equalizer, Robert McCall is said to have faked his death years earlier, and someone tells him directly, "You had a nice funeral." No year is mentioned, but the timeline fits almost too perfectly. Same man, different name, different city. Still carrying a gun, still protecting people who can't protect themselves. And then there's Dakota Fanning in Equalizer 3. They could have cast anyone for that role, but they called her. And their final scene together is quiet in a way that feels like it means something. Like 2 people who know exactly who the other really is. The Glock 34 is just a pistol. But if the theory is right, it's the gun that started it all. The Equalizer 3 weapons breakdown is next on this channel. Same man, different arsenal. Check that one out right here.